Record here. So, hey everybody, good morning and officially welcome. Good afternoon to those on the East Coast. But welcome everybody to the presentation, the discussion today. I think it's more relevant than ever what we're going to be talking about together today. So let me start sharing my screen here. And I'll get the slideshow going too. So welcome again, everybody. I'm even going to be trying this new thing with subtitles there at the bottom of the screen. I don't know if anybody can see that or how accurate they will be, but this will be helpful maybe later if we put it up on Facebook or whatever too.
Yes.
Okay, well guys, this is something I feel like has been in the works for a very long time. And it's surprising to me how fast all this is happening now. We're in a world where we are acting and moving faster than we've ever acted before on a world economy level. I mean, if you really stop and think about it, did you know in February 2020, just Valentine's Day, what's going on right now? You know, that you'd be wearing a mask on Memorial Day or watching people wear masks on Memorial Day. I mean, it's phenomenal to me how fast this has all changed. We watched the largest market crash and then rebound in our lifetimes and even in world, or at least this country's history. So if it's going down and coming up, it could continue to be as volatile as we enter into the summer months. And not just the stock market, but the main street markets too. Small business owners are suffering. We've had bailout after bailout. We've had 35, as of this recording, 35 million people file for unemployment. I mean, that's worse than the Great Depression at this point. So we have to know the truth about what's coming next. I feel like if you know what's going on, you'll know what to do. So the truth is, I think we've got some learning, some relearning. The good news is we've got a brand new game we can play, but we have to really know what's going on, and we have to know the players in the field. So I'd say this is really for people who are wanting to build real wealth, not just paper wealth, but true, actual wealth that you can feel safe with and you can leave to your future generations. A business that you can feel comfortable with. Danny has some, I think, really valuable information for those that are not in the Legends group and for those that are in the Legends group. We're going to be talking about how to design and grow a profitable business from the comfort of your own home. You know, whether you're in quarantine or you just like being around the kids, you know. It does not mean a hour-long commute every day just to live safely and sanely and to be productive and profitable in this world. So I think finally we're going to talk through in our webinar today a bit about the truth and the future of our economy and our finances. Okay, so I do have some disclaimers I always put here at the beginning just to keep the lawyers happy. I'm not an accountant. I'm not going to be giving any particular stock advice or investing advice. So, you know, it's just important for me to mention that from the get-go. Might as well get that out of the way. So, right, Danny? Danny, are you going to be giving us the secret stock that can, your last name is enough. So can you help us with some stock advice or anything like that today?
No, I don't have one weird trick to find the best stock.
Okay. Right on. So what we are going to be covering together today is the idea that market turbulence is not going away. This is not the last time we're going to experience market volatility, that turbulent times are not in the rearview mirror. But with the right mindset and the right tools, guys, we can pandemic-proof our portfolio. We can antivirus our money. So there are a few things I'd like to cover with you guys. The first is just 5 major problems with our mindset, and then some problems with our mindset, and then getting into some real solutions that I think are time tested and have even been through pandemics before. So, we've had this crisis in this country before, even just under 100 years ago. So let's talk about it. The first problem I see as I sit down and work with clients all over this country is that we have a backwards mindset when it comes to saving. Saving, not investing, is the problem. And with the recent market volatility, and for those that know some of our specialties, you might think I would say that Wall Street is the problem. It's not. It's really not the problem. Wall Street is not the problem. Since the start of this year, though, we have seen the most volatile market we've ever seen, like literally in the stock market's entire history. I mean, let that sink in for a moment. Even so, the real problem is not Wall Street. The real problem is saving. And here's why. We could handle market volatility if we had massive amounts of money saved in the bank, if we had some sort of a distinction between saving and investing. So before this crisis even started this springtime, we were already in massive trouble. We didn't have a rainy day fund, and we couldn't have handled a light drizzle. But guys, what we got was a torrential downpour with the coronavirus. So, the average American had about $6,500 of credit card debt, according to Experian, that came out earlier this year. But the expenses adding to the balance was a full 23% of Americans were saying that they had to pay for basic necessities on debt, like things like rent, utilities, food, were adding to their credit card debt. And another 12% said that medical bills would be the biggest portion of their debt this year. Yeah. So, there's a major gap between the standard of living of what we all need and real income that we have. So I'm going to go show you a chart on the next slide here, but starting at around 1990, you'll see it on the next chart, our incomes alone have not been enough to keep up with our standard of living. So we turned to debt to fill the gap. But with this financial crisis in 2008 and now in 2020, we are no longer able to cover our expenses with income, and soon we may have even bigger annual deficits per family. So like I say here, it was sometime in the late 90s, and we can explain why, or 1990, excuse me. We can talk about why that might be, but the main point is, as you can see, we ran the current financial meltdown that we're in. We're already living beyond our means, which is why you can see all-time record highs just before the end of the bull market. And small businesses are cash flow operations most of the time. And 50% of small businesses that were surveyed said they had about 2 months or less of cash as of the end of January 2020. And when they surveyed these small businesses, they said that they were really limited in their levels of cash. And that was causing a lot of the concerns even before the coronavirus started hitting our shores. And now they're saying that overall about 38% of small businesses think they'd still be able to be open after a 6-month crisis. But I want to let that sink in. 38% thought they'd still be open. What does that mean? That means 62% of businesses won't be able to last 6 months in this kind of environment. 6 in 10 businesses gone if this lasts 6 months. But that drops to 27% for lodging and tourism. So, if you're in different industries, and only 15% survival rate for restaurants. Can you guys imagine that for a minute? I mean, Danny, only 15% of the restaurants in St. Louis or in your town or wherever you guys live, 15% still open 6 months from now by Christmas. It's crazy.
That would be a very scary thing. And I know a lot of those restaurant owners, and walk in there and try to get takeout when I can. And you can see it on the look on their face that, they're certainly struggling. And as a little side note, if 15% of the restaurants closed in my current hometown, we still have 1.8 restaurants open. So we only have 2.
Wow.
But if I lost half of them, we'd be down to 1. So
that's amazing. The impact of this on a business level, I don't think has been felt yet, and it might not be felt until the fall. But you're right. We're gonna have a choice between a lot fewer restaurants going forward, unfortunately.
There's already a lot
Uh,
of companies that were in financial straits before this happened, and it's not going to get better, especially restaurants. Their
yep.
financials are just not that strong. So, but
Well, Danny, I think what you've got to share is going to be helping solve some of the business owners' woes. And again, if you're willing to change your game, you can survive and even thrive in this environment. So I
yes,
think you
sir.
guys are in for a treat with what Danny has to share. So the second problem I see is this problem of flawed advice. Now, the the media, and I use that word intentionally. I'm thinking about financial blogs and newsletters and kind of your typical save for the future retirement article you might see on the NBCs and the ABCs and Market Watch and these sort of articles. A lot of the media loves to put out really feel good information, and they might say things like, "Hey, let's create a fictional character. We'll call him John." And the media would tell John, "Hey, John, if you start saving at age 23, you'll only have to save about $14 a day to be a millionaire by age 67.
Hmm.
And we'll give you a nice conservative return of just an average return of 6%. Now, that's something most people may have heard. I know I've read that over and over again. I mean, Danny, does that sound familiar to you?
Very, very familiar. Heard that in
Yeah.
college, something similar
Yeah.
to that. Yeah.
Just put away $14 a day and like falling off a log, you'll be a millionaire by age 67. Now, a lot of people might have also heard the phrase, hey, don't open your 401k. Don't look at the balance. Don't worry, it will come back. It always comes back. The stock market always comes back. Now, if that doesn't sound like flawed advice yet, just keep listening. Okay, so many so average financial advisors will tell you, hey, if you want to play it safe, just buy a low fee index fund and invest into that index fund regularly. Pay yourself first. Let the power of compounding do its magic. But there's some trouble there. Markets, the stock market, they'll tell you, has done roughly 10% per year, every year, including the down years, they'll say. So yes, correct. The market over the last 120 years has averaged roughly about 10% annually. And that's about 6% from the growth of the market and 4% from dividends. Today, it might be, most advisors are saying closer to 4% going forward altogether. But this chart here shows the difference between nominal values of dumping in $1,000 versus a compounded rate of return of 6%, like an actual return versus a real return. So what we're looking at here is two numbers that both equal 6%. So both of those numbers are the exact same rate of return. Now, that should get everybody's attention because one of those lines is a lot bigger at the end of the day than the other one. Which of those two lines would I rather have? Oh, I want the bigger one at the end of the day. The big one is what I don't get, unfortunately. That top line is what investors think they're going to get. The bottom line is what they actually get. So the difference is when losses are thrown into your portfolio. When you have a spring like we just had earlier this March, the period of time it takes to make up that loss is huge. Yeah. And it's not the same thing as uninterrupted compound growth. So if we tackle this problem and add to it the problem of us not saving enough, we're in a lot of trouble. And that's why we couldn't have handled this coronavirus even in good times. So even a light financial blip would have been a disaster. So most people say, well, hey, I have to take on more risk just to climb back up. I need to get to that $1 million there. I need to take on more risk. And that unfortunately leaves them sometimes with even less money at the end of the day. In fact, that buy and hold theory that I've heard, very common myth in the financial universe. A CNBC article recently said, hey, just invest in low-cost index funds, and we'll give you an average 8% per year. But that problem is buying and holding doesn't always work out. There's this hidden viper in your portfolio. It's like a snake moving back and forth. It's called volatility. Let's call the snake volatility. Volatility destroys financial plans. It's almost never talked about in your portfolio. Again, they say, hey, we'll give you that average 10% return. But you go back to that blue line there. Doesn't that look kind of like a snake moving back and forth? And that volatility is what breaks compound growth. The ups and the downs coil up that portfolio return and gives you much less money at the end of the day. So let's look at it. So just a quick example. Let's say you follow their advice and you put your money somewhere where it's going to do 10%, and you want it to do 10% over the next 5 years. Well, the first 3 years, we have an annual return of 10%, which is pretty cool. I mean, that's pretty awesome. I don't know anything doing 10% so even Steven like that. And after the second year and third year, we've got an average return of 10%. Rock and roll. No problems, right? But then we have a negative 10%, just 10% negative in the fourth year. To me, that's not a bad deal. I mean, on average, at least temporarily, the market will be down 14% every single year, according to historical data over the last 100 years, at least temporarily, over the last century, every single year the market is down at least 14%, at least temporarily, before it bounces up. So to have a negative 10% in year 4 is probably not unlikely. But what that does is it totally destroys our average rate of return. We actually got our average return cut in half just because we had one down year. And some people say, well, that's okay. I can just get 10% the next year and I'll be back to my normal. I lose 10%, I'll get back up to 10% next year and I'll be fine. But the reality is it would require a 30% return just to get back to my average 10% that I'm trying to keep. So losing money is so important. Like avoiding that loss is so huge to your financial goals. So chasing return is less important than the uninterrupted growth of your money. I would take a lower rate of return just to avoid volatility, breaking my portfolio. All right, so here's kind of a picture of what we've just been describing. So like during good years, you got great green, this orange number here, this kind of this orange chart going up and to the right. Looks like a beautiful J curve. This is sort of what you might see on most investment portfolio projections. They sit down with you and they say, hey, you'll be working for the next few years, yes, and we'll give you this great average rate of return. And hey, that last market crash, yeah, that was a once in 100-year event. Don't worry about that. It's not going to happen again. But I guess the problem is, when we are in our 20s, it feels good to put money in and kind of hope and pray that we've got uninterrupted compound growth ahead of us. But then when you're in your 60s looking back and you're like, well, I didn't expect the 1929 crash or the 1974 bear market or the crash of 1987 or the dot-com bust or the financial crisis of 2008 or the pandemic crisis of 2020. And financial advisors will say, well, we didn't expect that either, but what good does that do us? It's hard to go back and catch up money that we saw vaporize as we went through life. So it doesn't have to be a global crisis for you to go through a personal financial crisis. It could be a medical emergency, or you might become disabled or get divorced or lose your job. But even if you go through life without having any of those happen to you, it could be that you've got a family member or someone close to you who had to go through something terrible financially, where you had to, break compound growth to go help them out. In other words, there are life circumstances that do not allow us to just buy and hold and go up that nice, beautiful orange J curve there. So again, variability matters. The majority of investors misunderstand when they're throwing money into their portfolio and expecting to get 6% average returns or 10% compound returns, is that losses matter a lot. In fact, losses matter more than gains. Getting back to even is not the same thing as making money, because we've lost that time that we took to get back to even in reaching our financial goals. Once you've lost 30% like we did at the beginning of this year, and we got back so far about 20%, well, actually, guys, to break even, when you lose 30%, you've got to earn 43% just to break even in the same amount of time. And I haven't seen the market do that yet. So again, it's what the investors don't see that matters the most. It's those hidden consequences that matters the most. What we see is the blue line. What we missed out on, or what we were promised, was that orange J curve. Okay? So let's say, for example, let's bring this down the ladder a little bit. Let's say that, for example, you're young, you're just starting out in life, you're ready to invest, you've got 10 grand in your pocket. Let's say you walk into your financial advisor's office and you're promised an average rate of return of 7% over your lifetime. And this oh-so average financial advisor shows you how the market's done 7% every year from 1965 up till today. And that would be true. And they're showing that black line just kind of going up and to the right for the rest of your life. So she'll project that that's pretty reasonable. It's going to go up, 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 all the way through the rest of your lifetime to 2060. And her average rate of return produces this beautiful orange J curve, just like you see here. And that's your money. Hey, look at that. That's your money right there. Now, pay no attention to the S&P. Don't look at it. Just put your 10 grand in and come back and see me when you're ready to retire. So with the actual S&P rocking and jostling up and down, the S&P as an orange dotted line continues on with the similar market swings and gyrations, but you will get that average 7% over your lifetime. And the investment advisor even says, hey, if you do nothing else, at the end of the game, when you're ready to retire, you'd have $149,000. You give me $10,000 today, I produce 7% average over your lifetime. 40 years from now, you're going to have about $150,000. Now you buy into that beautiful picture. You love the J curve, and over you hand over $10,000 as a lump sum, and then you leave for office and you forget about it for the next 40 years. You go about your business, and yes, it's true. You would have about $150,000. There's the math right there. But the oh-so average financial advisor forgot one very important piece to the equation. Her promises are not the same thing as reality. And averaging is not the same thing as actual results. Nobody is average. Just like they say in kindergarten, right? Everybody's special, just like everybody else. Nobody is average. So guys, we have to fast forward now 40 years. Let's say we approach retirement. You finally decide to open up that account statement that she's been mailing you for the last 40 years. You remember in your mind that you were going to get about $150,000 that you promised. And sure enough, your rate of return on the front page in big bold letters says 7%. And you get excited. You turn the page on your account statement to find your present balance, and your jaw drops because you only have $48,000.
Yeah.
How is that possible? Well, go back to that other chart on the previous slide. The real return was only 4%.
Yeah.
That's the compound annual growth rate over that last 40-year period, according to that chart. So instead of 149,000, we only have 48 grand. You're shocked. You let your account statement drop to your kitchen floor. You are angry. You run out the door. You drive to the financial advisor's office. You demand to know where your missing $100,000 is. Unfortunately, your financial advisor has long since retired, enjoying the management fees on your money, which aren't even factored into this calculator here.
No.
So, man, any thoughts on that, Danny?
Well, it kind of makes you, 8 or 9 years ago when I had started a banking, one of these policies, my eyes were open to that, and you wondered how they were able to even advertise such things. And you have to have more disclosure on calories and food, what's in your food, than you do what's actually happened to your, pocketbook when you're being told one thing. So it's kind of some misleading. It's even got some layering of deceit in there, to be honest, that it's not what it seems at all. So,
man, no, you're so right. I'd never thought of that before, but you're right. There's more disclosure on calories. It's cleaner. It's easier to read than your 401k statement. What does that say? My candy bar has more disclosures than my 401k.
That's right.
Wow. Exactly. So wrapping up, we've got problem 4 and problem 5, and then I want to get to some solutions. I promise, guys. We've got some great stuff to share. So the 4th problem I see in the current environment with the coronavirus attacking our health, and my prayers and my concerns are for every person who's been impacted, either on a health basis or a financial basis. But like I said, we were in trouble financially before the coronavirus hit our shores. So
Yeah.
again, I get it. $1 million. It sounds like a lot of money. It does. It really does. It sounds like a big round number, lots of zeros. In 1980, $1 million would have generated about $100,000 to $120,000 per year for you to live on. Now, in 1980, the cost of living was about $20,000 a year. So easy to live on $1 million with high interest rates and a low cost of living back in the 1980s. Today, we have a massive shortfall in what $1 million will generate for us for two reasons. One, the cost of living has gone up. And two, the savings that you can earn off of $1 million has come way down. Let me show you what I mean. This is just a rough calculation based on historical averages. However, the money you need in retirement is going to be based on your income needs to see how long you can live off that pot of money. So a lot of people come to me and say, well, Mark, what's my magic number? How much do I need to have in my savings to know that I can retire? How much is it? When do I know I've got enough in my retirement accounts? Let's find out. So what do you need? You know, if you told me, hey, you know, Mark, I can live on $25,000 a year, I'd say, wait, that's awesome. I hope you like single ply toilet paper because that's awesome. That's hardcore. That's Spartan. But even that, bottom of the chart there, you'd need about $1.19 million just to eke out an existence on $25,000 a year. So if you had only had $1 million at retirement, which sounds weird to say, you'd still be 20% underfunded in your retirement years. Now, guys, my bet is that you want more than just $25,000. You'd probably like to keep your existing salary in your retirement, right? But the trouble is we're all going to need to save a ton more money to build up to that retirement lifestyle that we want. If you need $100,000 a year, for example, in retirement, you're going to need about $4.7 million. That's jaw-dropping. And the final thing is, don't forget that inflation is a part of this too. So guys, remember, back to John. John's 23 years old. He's earning $40,000 a year. He's told by the average media to save $14 a day. And at age 67, let's say he actually gets that annual return, and he does actually get $1 million saved up. And he withdraws 4% of his money, which would be $40,000 of annual income. That's pretty straightforward math, but unfortunately, it's entirely wrong. The living requirement for retirees today is not today's income. It's tomorrow's income. You know, he's 23 years old right now, and he's spending and living on $40,000 a year right now. But 40 years from now, whenever he's ready to retire, he's going to need to live on a lot more income. So for him, in the future, 30 years out, he's going to need not 40,000, but he's going to need closer to 80 or 90,000 to live on. And if you're already in retirement and you plan to live for 30 years throughout your retirement, you know, if you're 60 today and you want to live to age 90, again, your income increases. There's this stealth robber in your income. Your paycheck is getting nibbled away at. So we need to spend more when we're in our 20th year of retirement than we do in our first. That's something really important to keep in mind. So again, this is a big problem, right? So at age 23, if you need to fund your lifestyle of $100,000 or more today, you're going to need about $5 million. That's your magic number to live in retirement. So we have to really impact, or you have to take the impact of inflation into account as we're looking at our financial future. So guys, that is the big, I guess, the problems with current financial planning. And as a certified financial planner, I think that there are some big and important things we can all do together that'll help us weather the storm. Because I don't have a crystal ball, but I can tell you guys, we've had 3 major market crashes just since the year 2000. Yeah. And I didn't know in January what we'd be doing right now. But I can tell you this, I expect there will be more. I don't know if it'll be a pandemic, but I can say there's going to be more financial crises in our future if we've had 3 in just the last 20 years.
Yeah.
So I want to take a pause here and see if there's any questions, comments. Danny, do you see? I'm going to also put up the poll that I have here, and let folks have a chance to put their polls to work here. So I've sent out a poll, and the poll is: how have you guys been impacted by financially turbulent times this year? Has there been a job loss or a reduction? Has there been a stock market loss in your portfolio? Has there been a business downturn? How about an unexpected or health-related or other related expense? So just take a moment, guys, and fill that little one-question poll out. I'd be very curious as to our audience's experience. It's all private. I can't tell who's saying what, so this is all confidential. And those polls are coming in. Danny, do you want to give any other feedback to the 5 problems? There's market volatility, there's inflation, there's the flawed advice from the mainstream media. What do you feel like is the most dangerous one, or one that you've kind of come across yourself the most?
Well, when I started on this discovery, I guess you could say, when I started being more curious to know, is there something better or different that I could do besides what I traditionally heard? I'm very thankful. I've always had a healthy dose of skepticism about things I would hear, and that has helped out in many ways. But the volatility it's just one of those things. If you really sit and think about it, does it feel right? I mean, really sink into that you just throw your money out there, and they're in companies, portfolios, money managers, people you don't know, and you don't have any control over it, and you don't know what's going to happen. But if you really think about it and sink down into that, and you realize that there's something there, you have a check inside that doesn't seem right. That shouldn't be the way it should be. Why should I rely on that? It's putting your trust in the wrong place, really, is what it comes down to. And so on that, with that said, you really got to trust your heart and what it is telling you, and follow that. Don't ever feel the pressure to do what everyone else is doing, or what someone told you to do, or your neighbor, or your parents, or be always seeking real wisdom, and that's the best thing you can do in your whole life, and not not the wisdom from your next door neighbor.
Yeah.
And you can wait on that, see if it is true, but just always wait to get confirmation on something, or to do the research yourself.
Well said, Danny. I think the truth is not in what other people are telling you. And I think many times we're told, hey, you're just not smart enough to figure this money stuff out. Or, hey, let the Federal Reserve figure it out for you. Or, the folks I don't care who's in the office, who the president is, who Congress is, they're going to figure it all out for us. And there's no way us mere mortals can figure this stuff out. No, I don't think so. I think if we look at things with clarity and honesty, we can come to the truth of things. It is a lot simpler than we realize. It's not simplistic, but it's simple. The truth about money is simple. Let me share the results, guys, of this poll. Again, the staggering results were that half of us listening today that voted have experienced the stock market loss this year.
Yeah. And
we've had 16% either experience a health-related issue or other major expense, and 16% have also experienced their business downturn. I'm surprised, too, to hear that 12% have had a job loss or hours reduction. So that's better than the national average, I suppose, at this point.
Maybe that's a good sign of what people are doing that are watching.
Yeah. Wow. Let's get to some solutions and what folks can do then to be a part of that. I think there is a chance we have here, guys, that we'll never see again in our lifetime. A chance to participate in an unparalleled recovery and solution. And like I said, I think now is the time more than any other time in my lifetime to take action. And I don't know about everybody, but I would say in all of our lifetimes to take appropriate action toward a brand new reality. I want to start with an idea. If you had a genie that gave you one wish, and this genie would let you either have Tiger Woods golf clubs or Tiger Woods golf swing, which one would you choose? Danny, what about you? What do you think? If you had the choice between golf clubs or golf swing?
Well, I think most people would choose a swing.
Yeah, the swing. Yeah, why would the swing be more valuable than Tiger's clubs?
Yeah, well, you can use that skill or that know-how to really help you advance your golf career if you wanted to, or maybe monetarily it'd be a benefit. It probably would. But just having the clubs, okay, you could sell them, but that's it. That's all you got.
Unless you're selling them on eBay or Amazon or something, I guess.
You're done.
Yeah, you're done. You killed the golden goose and you don't have the swing. All you had were the clubs. So what I wanted to start with is the swing. We will talk about the clubs. There are some particular products and strategies and tools, but let's start with the mindset. Okay? The first mindset shift is to aggressively pay yourself first. Remember, back to John, he was told to save $14 a day. That'd be about 13% of his income, roughly. I'm actually going to say, the real magic number is closer to 30% of your income. Now, if that feels dangerous to save 30% of your income, let's go back to grandma's time. In 1940, according to the U.S. Commerce Bureau, average American was saving about 37 cents on the dollar, which is unbelievably high for many Americans today. On average, we save about 5% of our income today. So to get to 30 is a feat, to be sure. For John, that would be about $1,000 a month he'd have to save, not $14 a day. But we like to break this up into the 10-10-10 rule. And it's a very simple rule where you can set aside 10% of your income for short term, 10% for medium term, 10% for long term. Now, we can get more complex than that. In fact, I recommend naming some of those dollars, like what's a short term versus a medium term versus a long term. But maybe we'll leave that for another podcast or another webinar or something like that. I can say, short term might be emergencies like health emergencies, 3 to 6 months of emergency fund. Long-term savings might be for things like retirement. And medium might be kids' college or the next car or things that might be 5 to 10 years out. Big business acquisitions, capital, that sort of thing. So the first action item is to think different and to pay yourself first. Not to pay your vendors, not to pay your employees, but to pay yourself first. Maybe if you pay your employees on the 30th of every month, maybe you pay yourself on the 29th, just to get yourself in the mindset of paying yourself first and saving that money before you spend it. A lot of folks will only save what's left at the end of their spending. I'd actually like to say, well, first save and then spend what's left. Profits come first. Okay, so that's the first mindset shift, to think through this strategy. I think the pandemic has really brought to our attention the importance of liquid savings, our accessible money. So this is a great chance to reevaluate how much are we able to save. Even if our income has come down some, maybe it's time to start saving even 1% of our income if you haven't done it before. And sometimes people will start the 10-10-10 rule here and say, Mark, I can't do 30% of my income, but I can do 10. Mm-hmm. Great. Then let's just do 3%, 3%, 3%, to each of those categories there. And at least you get started toward that goal, right? Second action and mindset shift is to treat saving and investing as different ideas. I would say that you should save money you cannot afford to lose and invest only money that you can afford to lose. That's okay to play with the market. I've got some money in a brokerage account and so forth, but it's money that I can afford to lose. If it went to zero tomorrow, I wouldn't miss it. It would not matter at the end of the day. All of my real wealth is in other things that don't lose value. Yeah. So learning to distinguish between the word saving and investing, I think, is really important. And by the way, when you've got a ton of money saved, set aside, you can afford to take more risk with your investments. And I'll say investments, and I include stock market, but I also include our businesses. You can afford to take more of a risk as a business owner when you've got 6 or even 7 figures of liquid money just sitting in the sidelines, ready to go, ready to deploy if you need it. So the third mindset shift is learning to think all about cash flow. Cash is not king. Cash flow is king. Is my sort of parody on the mantra there. So it's all about the flow of your money. If you can't save it, if you can't save it, you spend more than you make, and you'll rack up debt. So it's very simple. Your opportunity to think about cash flow as a strategic system makes great sense right now in the midst of a pandemic and a financial crisis. Think of it this way. What do you do when you get sick? Well, one of the symptoms of being sick or having a virus is you come down with a fever. You're burning up. Your temperature is above average. What is that on a business level? If we take that same metaphor of having a fever and being physically ill, what is that like when a business has a fever? Well, it's usually because we've got too high of a burn rate. Our burn rate is too high. We need to lower our temperature. We need to lower our burn rate. How much fluids are we bringing in? Cash flow. How much fluids are we bringing in? What is our burn rate? How much are we spending? How many Netflix subscriptions do we have? How many streaming services do we have? What are ways we can maybe lower our burn rate, bring our temperature down, and increase our fluids that we're taking in? And to do that, I think really is a mindset shift. Again, it's about getting creative, playing a new game. If you were driving Uber before, for an income stream, maybe it's time to think about what other ways can I add a side hustle or bring another source of income in. And Danny, again, has some really smart ideas coming up here on what that might look like. So cash flow is what it's all about. Action number 4 is, guys, stop keeping up with the Kardashians on Instagram or anywhere else. If advertisers were not getting your money from social media ads, they would not advertise on social media. In other words, it works when you advertise on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram, but it also works when they advertise to you and me. So the only thing I can say do is maybe you set up a time limit on social media apps on your phone. That's an easy, simple thing to do. 5-10 minutes a day, whatever you want to do, set up for yourself. But the side benefit here is you'll be more mentally healthy and more productive as a result. When you're not spending, the average, I guess, is 4 hours a day is what, I can't believe that's a real statistic, but I think the average social media time spent per day is 4 hours. On screen time to social media each day. So when you're not watching everyone else's big purchases, you'll be less inclined to make them yourself. Mm-hmm. And then the 5th action is pick up a side hustle or 2 or 3. Once you drop social media, it's going to free up that 4 hours a day or a week or whatever it was for you, which can then automatically increase your income, which, there are tons of apps out there, simple ways to just make extra money. And it's not beneath you to do so. I heard somebody once say, Mark, it feels so beneath us to have to sell our extra, jewelry or to get that extra side hustle right now. And I would say, no, what's beneath you is going into debt, falling deeper into credit card debt. That's what's beneath us. Let's put income as the primary solution to our problem. So I believe, again, Amazon Legends is huge for this. Huge. So hold on tight, guys. We're going to talk some about what Amazon Legends is and what it can do. And if you're already a member, it'll be a reminder of exactly how powerful that idea of using a solid business model to increase your income can be as a solution to the struggles many of us are going through this year. So your side hustle actually can become your main hustle if you follow what Danny and the team there at Legends are talking about. So action number 6. Plug your ears when you're hearing promises baked in with average returns. Don't let financial advisors or infotainers on the web or on the radio tell you that average returns are the same thing as what you'll actually get in reality. It's not just like falling off a log to get 12% on your mutual funds. So those are our 5 mindset shifts, or 6 mindset shifts to help you weather this pandemic and financial crisis. Those are the swings. Let's talk about the clubs. Anything on this before we move on, Danny?
Oh, no, you got it.
Cool. I'm going to keep rolling. Guys, there are several different tools we can use to antivirus or recession-proof our money. And so what you can do, there's a lot of ways to manage your portfolio risk. That's a fancy $2 phrase. And avoid those major crisis moments, those mean reverting events, as they call it. Again, the market was way overvalued last fall, and it's not even back to where I think a normal valuation is today. I think there's still more volatility to come. Now, I don't recommend or suggest you try to time the market by trying to be all in or all out. What's critical here is to avoid these losses that we went through earlier this year during the accumulation phase. When you're going up, up, up again, like we're doing right now as of this recording, the key is don't buy into that buy and hold myth, because honestly, that's the biggest trouble I see in most portfolios. Folks are saying to me, Mark, how can I get out? The market's up right now. I can't get out now. I'll have a taxable event. I'll lose more gain. It's going to keep going up forever. And then when the market crashes, they say, Mark, I can't get out now. The market's down. I'll lock in my losses if I get out now. So we're locked in. It's like a roller coaster with the lock bar down on our lap, we can't get out no matter if it's up or down, even when we need to. So again, the problems of saving and the problems of investing are on one side of the screen, but on the other side, there's a solution of saving large amounts of cash that never loses value but grows on a guaranteed basis. We're going to talk about 2 time-tested strategies where you can save large amounts of cash that never lose value but grow on a guaranteed basis. I mean, guys, you have a wonderful human life that's going to be filled with both successes and, unfortunately, tragedy. Nobody gets out of this world alive, of course. No, not me, nobody. So when disaster strikes, and whether that's on a personal level or on a global market level, and it seems to happen, at least on a global scale, every 10 years or so, maybe more or less for your own personal situation, what are you going to do then? Do you want to have happen to you next time what's happening to you this time, or what happened to you in 2008? So if you want to be ready for the next recession, whenever that day comes, socking away large amounts of cash and things that don't lose money but only grow on a guaranteed basis is a pathway that's been proven for over 100, almost 200 years. So we've got 2 proven strategies that work here. Let's talk about the first one. The first is something called bank on yourself type whole life insurance. Now, this is exquisitely designed for the purpose of protecting you from pandemics, recessions, and market craziness. You can put in regular amounts of whatever amount is comfortable for you, and every single year it's going to grow guaranteed in value. So literally, guys, no more volatility, no more lost decades. You can save regularly into this bucket, and you can do this on a regular schedule, either monthly or annual, and it builds real wealth for you. Not paper wealth like the stock market, but true, real wealth. And in addition to that, it leaves an insurance legacy later on when you pass away. So it gives you more freedom, more permission. It's like a permission slip to spend your money now. Again, the death benefit of life insurance is left to the family, but the cash value of the same life insurance policy, that cash money, is liquid equity for you to spend. And that death benefit is almost like a permission slip to spend your wealth now, because when you spend it, you still get to leave the remaining death benefit to your family.
Yeah.
So to me, that's a great relief when I'm looking at giant amounts of money that I need to save. Go back to that chart of that guy who wanted to spend $100,000 in retirement. He needed $4.7 million bucks. Well, we're going to need every dollar to spend for ourselves in our life to keep up with the cost of inflation and cost of living. But with life insurance, we're able to spend that larger number and still leave a large legacy for our future. So again, it lets us do that. It gives us the chance to save in a regular way. It is liquid, accessible money. It's not tied up like a 401k would be. And by using a bank on yourself type whole life policy, it'll be liquid and accessible cash value. It gives you guys the right and the ability to pull those funds or draw against them with a policy loan, where you're able to weather the storm whenever that storm comes again for your retirement. You're not going to take another beating or lose any compounding. One of the biggest pieces of this policy is its uninterrupted compound growth. It truly is that up and to the right J-curve, that orange line that we saw in previous charts, because even when you access the money in this policy, it continues to grow as if you did not touch a dime of the money, which sounds crazy. But again, we're using the cash as collateral. It's our bucket of money that we're using as collateral for all the purchases we need to make in our lifetime. And like Amazon Legends is so good at helping you find, it gives you arbitrage. You know, you're getting growth in the policy, and you're getting the money for your car, your vacation, your kids' college fund, your Amazon investment inventory, whatever else you might need that money to do for you. Okay? So let's say, for example, let's take John, our guy John from earlier in our webinar, and talk about what happens if he had a whole year where he could not work. And if that seems crazy, you know, according to the Social Security Administration, 1 in 4 of us who are 20 years old today can expect to be out of work for at least a year due to a disability before we get to retirement age. So 1 in 4 of us are going to be disabled for at least a year throughout our working years. So if you couldn't work for an entire year, what could you do? If it was if all that money was tied up in your house or anywhere else, mostly you'd be out of luck, right? What mortgage is going to give you a loan if you can't work?
Yeah.
But if your money was in a cash value of a life insurance policy, you could borrow against it, and the policy would keep growing uninterrupted for your retirement future. And you can spend that money to spend and live on while you're on disability. And as you go throughout life, headed toward retirement, you've got this large cash cushion. You don't want to be forced to draw down investments when the market's dropping. So we call this a stabilizer for your other portfolio. If you've got money in the market and you have a life insurance policy, we call this the volatility buffer. And I want to talk about that, but before I do, let me bring on Dan did all the right things. Let me tell you his story very briefly. Dan Proskauer, he's very kind and willing to hop on our podcast recently. And he did all the right things for a decade, but was getting essentially nowhere with his net worth. He went through the tech bubble. He went through 2008. He was ready for a change. All right. And at that moment, let's see if I can there we go. So at that moment in 2009, his net worth essentially was left unchanged after a full decade.
Yeah.
A lot of folks know what I'm talking about there. Up
Yes.
and down, up and down. You can see that major retirement housing and stock market crash in 2008. And then Danny, it was sort of like a lost decade for a lot of folks.
Yes, it was.
I had him come on our podcast, and he also updated his actual net worth. These are his real net worth charts. And from 2009, when he started his first bank on yourself type policy, and he started many since then, this is the updated net worth chart since he started his policies in 2009.
Yeah.
Let that sink in. That's real wealth locked in. When you get growth on a cash value life insurance policy, it cannot be taken away from you. And when they pay a non-guaranteed dividend to your account, it becomes a part of your guaranteed cash value for the rest of your life. So dividends aren't guaranteed, but they do pay, well, over a pretty consistent basis. Over the last century, they haven't missed a beat. Once you get that dividend paid, it becomes part of your actual net worth. It becomes part of your minimum guaranteed cash value for the rest of your life. So in Dan's case, his net worth nearly tripled in just 10 years. Now, some people have asked me, Mark, what are those red lines and those light color green lines there later on in the policy lifetime there? That's him taking policy loans to invest in real estate and businesses and other investment opportunities. In fact, he even invested in some stocks one time and got a great return. You can do that. Again, when your policy continues to grow and build, like you never touch the money, you can borrow against it and go get other investments that you need and that are necessary to help grow your wealth. So these are his words were, Mark, I realized when I put my money in something that does not go down, cannot lose money, I only make money.
Yeah,
That's a cool
that's right.
feel. Now, I mentioned the volatility buffer, and I want to quickly show this concept to folks that are into the numbers. Now, this is actually a report done by several PhDs and CFPs like myself. Wade Pfau, PhD and economist and retirement researcher, and Michael Fink. Wade Pfau actually was a professor of mine at the American College when I got my CFP. But he says, using the cash value life insurance policies as a volatility buffer can help manage the risks of market drops during your retirement years. So think about it, guys. If you're pre-retirees today and the market drops, at least you have a few years to let it recover and you weren't spending that 401k today. But if you're 67 years old or 69 years old or 73 years old and the market tanks, you still have to eat groceries this year. You still have to, see the grandkids and so forth. So you're pulling money out of that 401k as it's getting beat up in the market. That's double pain there. So the idea is to use your life insurance policy's cash value to spend that money when the market crashes. So that we call that the volatility buffer. So let's talk about what that does. It actually gives you an increased standard of living. So here's an example of a 65-year-old with $2 million in an IRA taking $150,000 out of it every year, in good years and bad. And you can see there at the beginning, he's got a few bad years, negative 14%, negative 26%, and then a positive yield of 37%, all the way down to age 80. And he's got about $941,000 left at the end of his 15th year of retirement there.
Yeah.
So that's without any volatility buffer. He lost $1 million in 15 years, which, that's real hypothetical market returns and real dollars gone, right? So he had to spend that money even in the bad years. In age 66, he was still spending $150,000, and he only spent $150,000, Danny. But check this out: he's left with, he went from 100. What was that? Let's see, 1.5 million to 1.0. He lost $500,000, but only spent 150.
Yeah,
that's an expensive year.
That's
Now, what if he had a life insurance policy just for 4 or 5 years of his retirement to spend? So he had about, a couple $100,000 in a life insurance policy that he could spend on those down years, whenever those years happen during retirement. So he still has his IRA value over here, and he still has the same market results here, but on the down years, like he has here and here and here and here at age 74, he actually pulls from his life insurance policy to supplement his income needs. And at the end of the game, at age 80, he has actually $3.8 million still ready to go and spend in just the IRA. Plus, he has the death benefit, remaining death benefit that he hasn't spent yet. So that's a gift to the family, no matter which way you look at it. That's the success of the volatility buffer. Same numbers, same values, everything, but he's just got couple years worth of cash value ready to go in the down years of the market. Any quick thoughts on this idea, Danny, or anybody have any questions on the volatility buffer?
No, I think just there's one person that raised their hand, but I didn't know if they meant to or not. They might have a question. But
keep that hand raised. We're going to have a maybe Q&A at the end. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, and write your question down, guys, as you have them, so we can not forget it when we get to the Q&A section too. Good. Okay, last piece, and then I'll hush. And want to pass the baton. So the second club in the bag of clubs is something called a fixed indexed annuity. Fixed indexed annuity. Now, we employ this strategy. We call it the income maximization strategy. We use a fixed indexed annuity that allows you to spend that cash savings or your IRA or your old 401k and protect you from any market downturns. I don't know if I've ever talked to the Legends group about this before, but I read this a couple weeks ago that in Bloomberg, how super wealthy billionaires were activating their pandemic escape plans. And a lot of them have these multi-million-dollar bunkers like in Indiana or New Zealand, and they're all hiding out there right now. And so, I would like to say, like, first of all, we're still alive, billionaires, if you're listening to this. This wasn't the zombie apocalypse we all thought it was. We're going to, I think, recover. But you only recover if you're not underground. In other words, you won't know that we made it through this unless you're ready to participate in the recovery. So let me bring you this idea here, guys. This is a picture of a fixed indexed annuity from 1998 to 2016. And there are 3 lines on this chart, but all of them started at the same point, $100,000. The blue line is sort of like a fixed interest rate. Think of like a CD or money market account, just earning slowly and boring and sort of predictable growth, which is boring is the new sexy, in my opinion, for financial plans these days. But, it's never going to wow us. The red line is the S&P 500 or a basket of the major parts of the stock market. And guys, no question about it, it looks like a roller coaster. I can see very clearly. I went up with pets.com and Enron right here, and then dropped dramatically, losing half of my life savings in just 2 years. I climbed back up the wall of worry and then crash again in 2008 and 9. And then there's been a tremendous rebound bull market ever since, all the way up through 2020 this year, which I think we will, who knows, but I think we will have more volatility as the year progresses into the summer and fall. But bottom line, whether I'm right or wrong about that, I don't have a crystal ball. The point is, there's a third line, and you have the right and the option, no matter what the market is when you're watching this in the future or today, or what happens after Memorial Day, you've got the right to participate in the green line. And the green line is a fixed indexed annuity with some of your retirement money. You don't get all of the growth that the red line will give you, but you get to watch and participate in that growth. So in the year 1998 to 1999, you went up about 3/4 of what the red line did. And once again in 2000, you didn't get as much, right? And by the year 2000, you might be calling me up and saying, Mark, why aren't I on the red line? Enron's going to the moon. Pets.com is going to the moon. And the key would be patient, right? Hold on, be tight, watch it. When the market crashes the following year, you're protected. Your money is safe. You don't lose a penny when the market crashes due to the market's fluctuations. And every year you get to reset your values and get to pick up where you left off. So when the market rebounds, your money picks right back up as if it hadn't missed a beat.
Yeah.
So guys, even if the red line was above the green line at the end of this little chart here, which of these rides would you rather take over a 20-year period, 30-year period, right? So fixed index annuities are allowed to watch the index without actually being invested in the index. And that can be the difference between success and failure in your retirement. Want to mention very quickly, there's a museum here in Chicago where we live, down in Hyde Park, which is near University of Chicago. And the museum is the Ancient Oriental Institute, and they've got the largest collection of biblical archaeology in the Western Hemisphere. That's so cool.
Wow.
I love it. There's like stuff from Hezekiah's day. There's ancient tablets from like Babylon, and it's just really cool stuff. But one of the walls in that museum was an annuity contract, held an annuity contract. It was about 20 feet long, and it was all this writing on it. But I was blown away when I saw that it was issued and written in 365 BC. So what is an annuity? Sorry, Danny, go ahead. Say again.
How much is that worth now? Is it still?
Yeah. If that dude's still alive, he's still getting a paycheck. Yeah. So what is an annuity? Annuities, even old-fashioned ones, are pretty cool because they never stop paying you a paycheck. If you like passive income, streams of passive income, you'd love annuities because they never stop paying as long as you live, guaranteed for the rest of your life. And if you set it up right, as long as you and your spouse lives.
Yeah.
So that's what annuities can be for you. Let me show you a picture of what that actually looks like. So again, our approach to retirement planning has been all wrong. We don't need to think about net worth. I don't care if you've got $1 million to your name if you can't pay the bills. What I care more about is, what is your monthly income? What is your monthly income? That's the most important number. It's not, if I could redefine the acronym ROI, investment world, we say return on investment. But I would say the more important thing is, what's your rate of income? And annuities can, better than any other financial asset I'm aware of, can produce a stream of income that never runs dry.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a 55-year-old who puts in 500 grand. Maybe he's got an IRA, maybe he's got an old 401k, and he just rolls that over into an IRA holding a fixed index annuity. He waits 5 years until age 60, and then he retires. By the way, notice there's no negative years any point along the way. That purple line there only goes sideways or up for 5 years. It does start to come down. Why? Well, now he's taking an income starting right here at age 60. Looks like his income is about $33,000 that year. So it starts at 33,000. By the way, Wall Street would recommend about 16,000 based off the 2.8% withdrawal rules.
Mm-hmm.
But we're getting 35. We're getting double our income off this annuity here. Now, with the fixed indexed annuity, the longer you wait to turn on the income, the larger the income would be, of course. But once you do turn on your income, that income will increase every year the index grows. So that's why these blue lines keep getting larger and larger. He starts out at about $34,000, but he climbs up here to 40,000, 50,000, up to, I think it goes up, $89,000 up here at the top. And that continues to grow and increase even after he runs out of money. Right here, his purple line hit zero. It crash landed right there.
Still getting money.
Continue.
Yeah.
Show me anything else that does that, right? What 401k does that?
No.
So even if your savings runs dry, your income will continue to increase for the rest of your life alongside that index. Pretty cool. These are things that have been around a very long time, but Wall Street is very committed to you not using them. And I am not us versus them. I'm not either or. I'm both and. Find the best allocation of your portfolio that helps make sure you can make it. I don't get on an airplane that says, hey, we've got a 90% chance of success. I want a 100% chance of success. And right now, I'm not satisfied that Wall Street has a 100% chance of anything, except that they're going to get paid. And so, guys, the final thought here is, time is the most valuable commodity. We cannot get more of that. It is the irreplaceable asset. So thank you for spending some time with me today. I'm going to hush and just leave my contact information up on the screen for a few minutes. Danny, do you want to share anything do you have any presentation details to share, or would you like to go through anybody who would like to ask a question or raise your hand? Maybe we take a few minutes to do that, and then give Danny as much time as you guys have to share a bit about Amazon Legends.
Yeah. Do you want me to go ahead, or do you want to answer any pertinent questions? Or
no, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead, and I can stop sharing my screen here.
Okay.
Guys, if you'd like, I'll put these contact details in the Q&A box, so you guys can reach out if you'd like. Okay. All right, I've stopped sharing.
Okay.
I'm gonna end my PowerPoint, and if you want to share anything, you can.
Yeah. Am I able to? I don't see a button to share my screen, but I don't know if do I have to be the presenter or
maybe one of the. Let's see if I can help you do that. Yep, there you go. Now you're a presenter. You should be able to share.
Okay, I'll start sharing here in a minute, but just appreciate Mark and think I spent a lot of time trying to, as I said earlier, seeking some alternative investing because I've seen what the stock market can do. I dabbled in it, and I did see what it did to others, and it's a high risk game. It can be that, and you could definitely lose sleep over it. It'll cause a lot of unnecessary worry, and that's not a good place to be. We have enough people have put enough burdens and worries on themselves. One last thing they need is really money. Money worry that probably causes some of the most angst in marriages, and seemingly it does. But you don't want to pile that on top of your other cares of your life, the things you need to do. But there, where I think everyone, there's always people that don't, they're not destined to ever have financial success or have any leftover income. There's people that are in that position. Maybe they're only going to serve their entire life. But I think most people in life are going to have some sort of surplus if the money is watched carefully. And if you try to budget it, which is something I've not been good at in the past, and my relationship, primarily with God, and then also talking to Mark has motivated me to be always better at that. And we met in 2018, and I've steadily increased and got better with that. But it's always good to, whatever surplus we have, we can set it aside, put it somewhere safely, and then if at any point it ever is called upon to give it away or to put it in something, that we can take it. And again, it can keep earning interest, which is a huge thing. Now, some of you may have been affected, financially with all the stuff that's going on. Many people have. One industry or sector, I guess you could say, that's done really well, as you all know, is probably is online sales. E-commerce world has boomed. As people stay at home, they're really forced to buy things online. Not only buy things online, but use apps and things like Instacart or food delivery, Grubhub, whatever they are. I don't use any of those. And so even the people who are skeptical of the internet and putting their personal information out there have kind of been pushed into being comfortable now with using the internet and purchasing things online. So a lot of people that it may have taken more years for that to happen are now pushed in that position. So, with Amazon, obviously, is the big behemoth of online sales. I was reading a statistic the other day where they said 80% of all home improvement e-commerce is done through Amazon. They have pretty much monopolized the entire home improvement sector online. And some of the other categories they haven't fared so well on, but that one in particular, they've really made great strides in, especially since this pandemic and everything happened. And that really opens your eyes to see if you have a store or you have any exposure to brick and mortar retail. I think brick and mortar retail could and still will have very a legitimate place here in this economy. People are socially starved. When the economy opens back up, I think people will go out there and spend money and socialize. Retail and all that's become kind of a social thing, where people go and shop together, kind of have like it just depends where you go. Let's say you had a Target date or a Walmart date and you go there together, get some popcorn. It becomes a social thing. You spend money. You can't do that online. So I think there's going to be kind of a balance there. But obviously selling on Amazon has been a great thing. It has, for myself personally, it's been advantageous at times to have the diversity of, I have had other businesses in the past, but Amazon's always been kind of steady sales, and I praise God for that, and having all that opportunity and that windfall of cash. And I've always employed different thoughts to selling, and just like I had to be curious, and all those things were put in my heart to go and find. So I can't take credit for any of those things. All I can say is I just follow the leadings of God there, and it's led me to some great things. And selling online has been one of those, and what I've been given, I've been able to share with others and help them maybe get out of jobs or situations they have been very troublesome, or things they hate doing. They wake up every morning and they just despise going to work, and maybe they're losing hours at their job because they are impacted by what's happening online. As of last year, only 11% of total retail sales happened online in the U.S. I think most people would think that number is much higher. With this, obviously, with this pandemic and everything that's happened, it's accelerated that greatly. And so it's made e-commerce kind of like in the middle of the summer, kind of spring going into summer. It's made it kind of like Christmas time, where Christmas time normally is, the peak of online sales, and we're kind of getting 2 Christmases in a year. So I imagine this coming Christmas time will be even much higher than it has in previous years. And I think you'll see some sort of parabolic growth in e-commerce to a degree for maybe a year or two until this blows over, if it does. Maybe this will just become the new norm. Like after 9/11, we had a lot of new norms established, like TSA and airport security, things like that. So we could have a lot of new norms that we will just become accustomed to. And maybe that one of those things I think could be shopping online. So if you've been affected by your income's been affected in some way, or you feel vulnerable, your job feels vulnerable, and you've always felt that maybe I should do something different. There is an opportunity. We just want to extend it to everybody. For $1, you could be in our group and learn everything you need to know, have all the tools required to, if you apply them, and if it feels right to you, do it. Some of you may feel like you just need to stay where you are, which is good too. You should follow that. But don't just go chasing dollars. That's not what you should do. So I'll share my screen here. It's let's see here. I lost my page there. Okay, Chrome tab here. So I'm just going to share this just so you can see what this group is about. And again, there is the website is pages.amzlegends.com/$. So you can try the group for $1 and for 30 days. If you don't like it, that's fine. At least you can gather some very valuable information. So, it's a group where we've pretty much taken everything that I have learned over time that I've been given, and have a knowledge I've been given, and I've tried to compile it in a very easy to follow manner. And so, I went from the bottom, I would say, financially. I was at a gas station, and I realized I was overdrafted on my debit card. And I think all my credit cards I didn't have, but maybe a couple, and they were maxed out. And I realized when I got to the gas station, well, I don't have any money to buy gas, and I'm about to run out of gas. At least I was close to home, but I was digging in the seats and stuff to find change. And so that was kind of the bottom. But I had, there's always that faith that things would change within, but I just had to wait for that. So, and then I stumbled across, because I was couponing for groceries and trying to save money, I stumbled across Amazon, and then this group was born with a friend of mine, Ryan Rieger, which I see him on the webinar here, but he saw that there was some valuable information that I had learned over time, and I was given, and so this first year I was able to do $365,000 in sales, and I was able to net, which sales doesn't really matter. I was able to break 100,000 in profit, net profit, which is more money than I ever had. And I think over the next 2 years, I probably was able to pocket more money than the previous 10 years of my working life. So, and it was obviously a great thing that happened for our family. We've been able to pay off large amounts of debt and to not be squeezed, feel that squeeze of that credit card debt, things like that. And then that's about the same time I started looking more into putting my income, what profits I had. I didn't feel at the time that all of it was, I felt like maybe I'd set some of it aside for a later time. Don't know where it'll be or what it'll be used for, but some of it needed to be set aside for whenever God would call for it. And so I could use it. Maybe it's for myself. Maybe it's to give it away. I don't know. But you certainly want to put it somewhere it's going to be safe. You don't want to put it at risk. That's why I say the stock market, if you really think about it and feel deep down that it's not right. There's something not right about it. So if you're needing a way to maybe earn some extra income, and you can set that aside, and you feel that is something you should do, we'd be happy to have you. pages.amzlegends.com/dollar. And you get a lot of tools, everything that would be beneficial to you to have success, and just apply it. And it's so easy. You could start with $100, and I did an experiment where I started with, I think it was $182 or $300. I can't remember the exact number, but in 45 days, and I made a few videos on that, and I was able to turn that into $3,000. Now imagine on a $3,000 cash that I had, that I didn't owe to anybody. It wasn't like I owed that on a credit card, or I had to buy a bunch of inventory, things like that. But that was money I actually could hold in my hand, tangible. And for most people, that, if you read the statistics out there, that's a great windfall of cash, when most people may only have $500 to $800 in savings. So, and I was able to do that with just a few $100. So, and I show all that and exactly what I did. And of course, all the tools necessary to do that. They'll just help speed things up. They're not really necessary, but they'll certainly help speed things up. But you can go here, make your own decision, thoughtfully consider it. You can see there is a lot of success stories. Again, to give God the praise for all these things. But you can see that people have had great success. Most of these people just starting off, or they were flailing and floundering, and now they have success. You can see some of these, big numbers. So, and praise God for that. And just one thing I think is important to remember is we have a lot of a wealth of knowledge and things, and during this whole presentation, I was reminded of King Solomon. King Solomon, whether you read the Bible or not, I think it's a great thing to read the story in Kings there, where he was basically he was asked, what would you have? God asked him, what would you have? And he asked for wisdom. Above all, wisdom to judge and judge righteously. So, and then God supplied him with wealth because he didn't ask for that. And I think it's always important to seek wisdom, not necessarily wisdom that's here earthly, but to seek that heavenly wisdom, and that wisdom will help you lead you and guide you in all these things. So, especially when it comes to money and businesses, and trust what your heart is telling you, and to follow that always. And if you read through the Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, and don't always just assume you know what everything means, but just prayerfully consider what some of these things mean. But there's a lot of great wisdom that's given to you there. But a person who asked for wisdom, and he in turn was given, probably is the wealthiest person that ever lived and ever will live potentially. So. But I think it's to remember the difference between being rich and being wealthy. There's a big difference there. Rich, it's talked about. Jesus talked about rich people are full. They don't have no need of anybody or anything. You see that a lot out there. All you have to do is turn on Facebook or turn on the media, and you can see lots of those people are full of themselves. And then you see people that have wealth, not just financially. Maybe they don't have financial wealth, but they have wealth. Spiritual wealth, and those are the things you seek. And in turn, I think that's your best chance for financial success. If you're going to have that and seek that as priority, you could very well be blessed with financial wealth. I was. It really wasn't my doing. You work hard, and that's all you can do, and follow your heart there. So, and if this feels right to you, you can join, share it with a friend if you like, if you feel led to do that. We'll definitely do our best to serve you as best we can. And, but this is the best opportunity to be in the e-commerce world. You're really going to start off on a jump start, I guess you could say. Some people start in Q4, and, sometimes that can be a rocky road, but because so much is happening at once, and Amazon does a lot of things maybe to make it a little more difficult if you just started selling. But During this time where it's kind of like Christmas in July, if you will, it may feel like that. You can kind of get yourself a jump start where it seems like most anything you attempt to sell does sell, and you could have a great jump start, and you may see right away, hey, I could replace my current income with this, and you may be led to do that, is to quit your job. But so again, if you feel like that's something you want to do, come and join us, and I'll definitely serve you over there, and many others that we have in the group that make it happen. And you get a welcome call and just to walk you through everything, so it's not so overwhelming. So we have people to take care of you there as well. But I think that's about all I have to say. That's Mark. This is a great place where Mark has. I had to seek for that. Didn't just fall in my lap necessarily, but that if you think about it, that's really the best way to store your money, if you will, that paper dollars, and when it's time to use it and it's time to pull it out, what benefit and greater benefit is there to take money out and still earn interest, as opposed to a savings account where you take it out and you earn no interest because it doesn't have any money in the account, and use that as you will. And of course, the death benefit, and most importantly, I think using the strategy of spending those dollars that you have, your cash value, possibly purchasing inventory. I think that's a great way to double dip on interest, if you will. So you can earn that interest or that return on the product you buy for $1. Maybe you buy something for $1 wholesale and you sell it for $7. After Amazon fees, you may net $4 or $3. So you add a $2 net profit. Just on paper, that's what it would be. So, and plus you're still earning the interest over here in your policy. So you are double dipping on interest. And maybe if you use a cashback credit card to purchase your inventory because you have the money set aside in your cash policy, and you use that to pay off the credit card right away because you have the money reserved for it, and you can get another 2% on your credit card, plus maybe you earn 50% on your Amazon sale on that same dollar, and that same dollar is earning 5 or 6% in your policy per year. That can if I were you, I think that feels like the right thing to do. So, and whether you do Amazon and sell on Amazon or not, I think that is the appropriate thing to do. It does feel right. So, but it's always there if you need it. And
Hey, that's a great tool right at the very end of our webinar to share that. I think if folks are listening carefully to what you just said, it could change their entire life. I've kind of likened your business, the opportunity you have, as almost like, hey, we need a money making machine. We need something to bring food into our financial bodies. And harvesting and farming and harvesting is what you can do with a business like what you're helping so many hundreds of people do, Danny. And then somewhere along the way, we have to process that. Like that's what a budget can do, and then a place to store that wealth once you've built it, so that you can continue to reinvest it back into your business and for your family, which is what the bank on yourself type policies can do. So it's so related. I mean, the opportunities are just endless, guys. So as we're wrapping up, Danny, are there any other final words of wisdom for anybody what's the web page they can go to again if they want to get access to the Legends group for exactly $1? It's incredible.
Yeah. So I and hopefully everyone got it. I put it in the broadcast message there, but pages.amzlegends.com/$. So,
yep,
and I
put
it
there too.
Okay. So just look at your Q&A or the chat there, and you should be able to see it's clickable, looks like. So, but it looks like you have some questions, Mark, possibly.
Yeah, folks are saying great presentation, thank you. Folks are saying is this going to be recorded and sent out? The answer is yes to that. And I just made a note here. How are you? Someone wrote, "Are you still getting products without going into stores or shipping delays?"
Absolutely, yes. In fact, it's kind of odd that Amazon has actually been the chief worst as far as shipping delays. You go to Walmart and order something, they're still shipping it on time because I do sell on Walmart as well, and they were getting it to people on time. It's just everyone goes to Amazon.com primarily, and for now, I think that could change over time as competitors rise, like Walmart and all the other ones you may not have heard of, that they're rising rapidly. But so they're bogged down greatly, and they had to hire over 100,000 people, like they do during Christmas time, to catch up with it. They weren't expecting it, no, couldn't see it happen, just like the stock market, going down and then going back up magically. You just don't see those things happening. But yeah, I was still able to get products. If you order from wholesalers, there was no delay there at all. If you ordered online from other retailers, there really wasn't any delay. I've just ordered a bunch of stuff, and it got here in a very, very timely manner, and within a few days, 3 to 4 days. So
Awesome. Well, guys, let's wrap up here, as I want to be respectful of your afternoons, everybody, and happy springtime, happy summer. Honestly, the power of this time it couldn't be overemphasized. I think our grandchildren will be talking about this, and take to heart everything you've heard today. You can go to our podcast page, Not Your Average Financial Podcast /schedule. You can go to lakegrowth.com/schedule, and then to reach out to me and have a quick conversation. And if you'd like to follow up on the offer for $1, go to pages.amzlegends.com/dollar to get to know Danny and or myself. Honestly, guys, there's no better place to go than to be mentored by a guy as authentic and true as Danny. And so you guys are in great hands with him. And Danny, thank you for the opportunity to speak to your group and vice versa. Thank you for being on this webinar.
Yes, of course. Good day to all.
All right. Have a great day, guys.